but you can see all the scoring inside that. Oh, there you go, in the bushing. Anyway, if you can't tell from the shot there, that bushing is cast into that tail house, that tail section of that transfer case. So guess what we have in the box? Yep, you got it. We have the whole back half of that transfer case. Well, I just opened my box. Forgot to hit the record button when I did. I'm taking you guys with me. Anyway, this is our new rear transfer case half. You can see that they've actually, let me get my light off of it here maybe. I don't know how well you can see that, but there's actually a seam right in here. It is a replaceable bushing now. So I'll get you set up, and then set up where I had you earlier, and you're going to watch me put all this back together again, or at least you can. Alright guys, I'm back. Oh, we're here. I got most of the tools I'm going to need to do this, but I need to clean this up first before we put it back together. So the first thing I'm going to do is go through with a die grinder with a wire wheel. Just need to be careful since this is aluminum, you don't want to dig into it. But I'm going to go through with that, clean all the old silicone off, then I'm going to go through with a tap. It is a 8 by 125 thread pitch. Run all the threads, and then we will hose this whole thing down, get it all cleaned out, get all the crap out from cleaning it off, and we'll reassemble the other half of the case and get ready to mate them back together. Hey guys, welcome back. Now the scoop on this thing is I had over an hour and a half of video, and I was trying to condense it down as best I could so everything is sped up at roughly 4 times. I'm working at 4 times speed on this, so hopefully you'll get the gist of everything. The one thing I can tell you is when you're putting things up, putting them back together, that is what is going to take up 95% of your time in a job, is to make sure you get it properly. I mean, I could have just half cleaned the silicone off, put some more on, slapped it all back together, but you know, in the long run, I don't want this customer to have to come back and I have to pull the transfer case out and reseal it, or I didn't get, you know, I left a chunk of crap in there that I didn't see and it chewed something up inside the transfer case. So it's always good just to take a few extra minutes, get everything really nice and clean. And like I said earlier in the video, when you're working with a wire wheel like that on an aluminum transfer case, you really do need to be careful that you don't push down too hard and dig in. Just clean it till you'll see the color change as the silicone goes away. Now, when I put it back together, I do re-silicone it. That is the way that the factory sealed this case. So there's nothing wrong with that. I did use a new gasket between the transfer case and the transmission though. The old one was pretty beat up, and there is fluid in that area generally, so you do not want to use, you'd be better off not to use silicone. Just the way it works. So I'm gonna bug off for a few minutes and let you continue watching me get this thing good and cleaned up. Just so you know, in the blue spray can there that's just off to the right of the screen, that is excuse me, those 2 Zep cans have brake cleaner in them. We buy it in 55-gallon drums, and it's actually some really good stuff. And we use it in the Zep can. You know, you just unscrew the cans. And what I've actually done with our brake clean barrel is put a old fuel pump that I pulled out of the fuel pump still works just fine, but I pulled it out of a wrecked car, and I hooked a line to it, added some wire to the leads, dropped it down in the barrel, sealed the barrel back up. I just drilled a hole in the bung on the top enough to get the fuel line and the wire up through, and then siliconed it all in there. And I have a little lawnmower battery that we ended up with from somewhere. It may have been a core, but it still holds enough of a charge to run that fuel pump. and we can pump it straight out of the barrel and into the sprayers, and those things work great, and they're a heck of a lot better than the brake cleaner that we get is a heck of a lot better than the stuff you get from the auto parts store in the little cans. So anyhow, I'm going to cut in with some music for a few minutes while you watch me clean this up. It's just a matter of going through, getting all the silicone off, and then going through and spraying out the case to remove any bits of, little small metal particles and all the crap that just builds up over time. So, be back in a few. Alright guys, as you can see, when I went to stand that up in the drain pan to clean it, I didn't realize that those planetaries were not held on by any kind of a snap ring, and they did slide off. But thankfully the way they landed, I could tell where all the spacers went. Now right here I'm actually using some the Permatex Ultra Slick on the bearing surfaces. I did that with all the bearings in there. I didn't want these bearings running dry for any amount of time, and it is going to take a little bit to get the transfer case fluid up to all the bearings. So I was just trying to make sure that they were well lubricated. Here you do have to get the snap ring in the groove before you put the shaft in, and then as you can see I've got my needle nose pliers in there to expand it, and then you have to kind of beat the shaft and the bearing down in there. Now I'm using a real soft faced hammer, and technically there is a fixture that you can clamp to a bench for assembling these transfer cases. We don't have one. We don't do transfer cases all the time. I mean, we'll fix them if they come through and they're broken, but it's not something we specialize in. So You can do it without the fixture, though, if you're trying to do this at home, on your workbench in your garage. As you can see, it's going to work. It's going to work just fine. So, and here I'm getting it siliconed up and ready to go back together. Just make sure you get it around all the bolt holes really well. You don't want to leave any gaps where you end up with a leak in the future. So just make sure you get it all. You have a nice bead all the way around there, and it's plenty thick so that when it squishes out, it'll give you a nice seal. Now, if you notice, while I was cleaning up, I did clean up the planetaries and the drive chain real well, as well as the case itself. I'm just trying to make sure I get as much crap out of this transfer case as possible, because this vehicle does have 250,000 miles on it, and I doubt that transfer case has ever been split open. By the looks of it, I'm sure the fluid's been changed, but now right there, I did have to get the case to come completely back together. The bearing fit on the inside is fairly tight, so I did have to tap it back together. And then I'm going through and actually hand starting every single screw. You never want to use a power tool to start a bolt or a nut or a screw, because there's an extremely good chance you're going to cross thread it. I've made that mistake, and most good mechanics will tell you at some point in their life they made that mistake and they learned a lesson from it. So little advice: just don't start them with a power tool. Start them by hand. So here in a second, you will see me go through with my little impact gun and tighten all the bolts down. If you watch carefully, I'm working more or less in a star pattern to try and suck everything down tight and evenly. There are some alignment pins in there, so you want to make sure that as everything slides together, it's sliding together real nice and even. You don't have any gaps. You're not going to warp the case, or worse yet, crack it. Those case halves are way too expensive for that. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've got it all reassembled now. It's just a matter of putting the shaft seal in and putting it back in the truck. Here in just a second I'm going to put the new gasket on the front of it, and I will tell you there's only one way the gasket goes on. The studs are not all equal the way around, so there is a specific way it has to go on. Now beyond that, this, I don't know if you'd call it an overhaul, but this was fairly straightforward. But just like anything, as I mentioned here, pulling it out and tearing it apart is generally the quick and easy part. It takes to clean everything up when you're reassembling it is what takes you the longest, but it can make the biggest difference in the longevity of a project. Now, as you can see here, this transfer case is not exceedingly heavy. I was able to lift it up and get in the truck myself. It's just a matter now of lining the studs on the transfer case up with the holes in the adapter on the back of the transmission and sliding it together, and it'll hang there while you get the nuts started. It's not a major ordeal. I did have some nuts already pre-positioned where I could grab them once I headed up there to kind of make sure nothing moved. But aside from that, this, like I said, is fairly simple and straightforward process. So at this point, the biggest things we have to do are stick the drive shafts back in and fill up with fluid, which unfortunately my camera died before I got that recorded and I swapped these. But I touched on this in the part 1 that I posted. This particular unit calls for GM transmission and transfer case fluid. You need to make sure you put these things. I don't know how they have the fluid for. It looks like automatic transmission fluid, but I can guarantee it's not. So I don't know if they have extra in there, but a couple dollars for fluid is not worth the risk of a several $100 transfer case. So spending a little extra to get the proper fluid, and it is a Delco fluid, so you're going to have to find some place that carries AC Delco. Aside from that, it's just get it all back in. You've got that one speed sensor that was on the tail housing, and a vent tube, and other than that, it's 6 bolts and your 2 drive shafts, and that's all there is to it. So guys, I really do hope you like this video. I hope maybe it helps somebody. I know I had a heck of a time trying to find a lot of information on this transfer case. The model number, that was a big thing because I needed a model of the transfer case to be able to figure out where I needed to order my parts from. So like I said, I believe I said it in the description in the first one, this is a Borg Warner 4481-NR3. And like I said, it's a single speed full-time transfer case. The planetary that's in there, I do believe, is basically a 60-40 power splitter, so it just splits the power between the front and rear axles. Anyway, like I said, I hope somebody found this helpful, guys. So if you have any questions, as always, come down in the comment section. If I can't answer them myself, I will try and find the answer for you, talk to some people and see what I can come up with. I'd love to hear from you, love to see what you think. Click the like button, please. I could really use it. And while you're there, while you're watching the video, go ahead and click the subscribe button. I'm trying to pick up a few more subscribers here, and anything I can do to do that would be wonderful. And please, if you don't mind, you like the video, share it with somebody, pass it along, let somebody else watch it. Maybe maybe they can get a little bit of information from it, learn something new. So you guys have a nice day.